Welcome back, everyone, to our all new exciting show, Authors and Coaches United. Today, I have the honor of introducing retired Lieutenant Colonel Jason Pike, who is the author of 3 powerful books that I highly recommend everyone out there to read. The names of Lieutenant Colonel Jason Pike's 3 hard-hitting books, which will be discussed in this interview, are A Soldier Against All Odds, Leading Through the Crossfire, Out of the Military, Back into Civilian Life. Let's go ahead and jump right into the action by allowing Colonel Pike to answer questions that will draw everyone deep into the Colonel's past, present, and hopes for the future.
Yes, I've got 3 books out. I'm working on a 4th book. I've done over 60 podcasts. I'm an inspirational speaker. I'm an author. And I'm the damn narrator of 2 books that you mentioned. It would be Leading Through the Crossfire and then A Soldier Against All Odds. So I've done audiobook. That one other book about transitioning out of the military, that's more of a self-help guide.
Diagnosed with learning disabilities and osteomyelitis at a young age, which is a bone infection with chronic inflammation, when did you realize your life would be different and more challenging than most? And how did these early challenges shape your military career and your approach to writing these 3 books?
Well, the thing about it is there was no hope I knew that I was going to be a manual laborer a low ranking person in life. I knew that. I expected that. It didn't put me down in depression because I was a kid. I was 7 years old. I was 7 years old. I failed the 1st grade. Reading and writing are my worst subjects. Oh, by the way, I've got 3 damn books out there, bestsellers. And then the osteomyelitis came along after I failed that 1st grade. So sports was out of the question. Academics were out of the question. I just knew. So when you're pounded down young, you just expect that you're just going to be a piece of shit. And I expected that. That was something that I was thinking that this is all it's going to be. And so I wasn't depressed. I damn sure didn't think I was going to be writing 3 books. Shit, I couldn't even write a damn paragraph. So that's what's my thoughts in my 8, 9, 10-year-old mind. And it was also in the same mind of my family, friends, and everyone around me. It was known. It was verified. It's on paper that you cannot process information. And of course, osteomyelitis was a bone disease. And of course, that's not going to make you a great, football player or baseball player. So those were things that I just accepted as a child.
Could you share one good, one bad, and one ugly situation from your 31 years in uniform? How did these experiences inform your writings in A Soldier Against All Odds and influence your advice in Leading Through the Crossfire?
Oh, one good one was just graduating from college. I did everything at the bottom. When you read that 1st book, A Soldier Against All Odds, everything was at the bottom. So graduating college and getting through basic training at the age of newly formed 18, that was really good. Then graduating from college, that was really, 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 really good. Okay, so the bad, oh my God, a bad event would be it's kind of like one of those mistakes you make and you fall into shit. And I've done that. I've almost drowned in feces in South Korea as a lieutenant. Lieutenants out there trying to read a map, and I slipped into shit and almost drowned. That's definitely in the book. That entire story is in the book. It's kind of funny. It's very traumatic because you almost died, and you died in shit as a lieutenant. Going through going through the woods. But that was a bad experience. My worst experience, or the ugly experience, was really that 3rd book you talked about. So my 1st book, A Soldier Against All Odds, everybody wanted the worst. It was about toxic leadership. And about being thrown under the bus and ghostlighted by your own damn people. And I love the military, but it ain't perfect. and all my benefits and everything come from. So that led me, that experience, and that first led me to go leading through the crossfire toxic leadership. And it's not just for military people; it could be anybody out there, civilians, anybody really that have a boss that's a narcissist or some sort of mental problem that just puts you through hell. And I detail that out, not just with me in the first book, but with the third book, I have a lot of other people that come on board and talk to you about. When I talk about toxic leadership in that third book, or even in my first book, it ain't about someone who's just mean or an asshole. This is about someone who has a mental problem. They really do. And I'm not going to name names, but they are narcissists and they have mental problems. And I tell you how to cope with it and what to do about it and things of that nature. So that would be the good, the bad, and the ugly right there.
In A Soldier Against All Odds, you discussed your father's role in your life. How did this relationship impact your military career and your perspective on leadership, as explored in Leading Through the Crossfire?
My father, Um, in my first book, A Soldier Against All Odds, I dedicate it to him. Leading Through the Crossfire, I do not dedicate it to him. That is about toxic leadership. But of course, everything comes from that first book. A lot of things come from that first book about learning about everything in life. So the first book is definitely about my father, A Soldier Against All Odds. That's where it's maximized out. And so in that first book, I'm having a conversation with my father in many ways, and we lead that conversation. My father was white trash. Me, and that I know that's a bad term. Some people call him a cracker. Some people call him a dirt eater. But he rose up from that, and he made it into the Navy, and then eventually went into corporate life. So, but that haunted him being white trash, being a cracker, being a dirt eater, someone who was like everybody in the South was poor. I know that, but he came from a different type of poor, meaning stealing food poor, wearing rags on your feet poor, and I didn't grow up poor, but he always talked about it. He always talked about it. It haunted him being starving, cold, and hungry. It's so that sort of like I heard all this stuff all the time. He'd be drinking at night and talking about like stealing food and but he was not. Once he went into college and got out, he was okay. He was okay. But no, it sort of what I'm saying is all of his stories that were told, like like old people do, like I don't know, everybody did. Well, they just repeated over and over and over. It sort of affects you. So that affected me to write that first story, A Soldier Against All Odds, because it was about never quit. That's what it was about. It was about never quit. Even if you're a damn dumbass, well, kind of like I was, I guess, and you just don't quit on anything, and eventually the damn gate's going to break. And so that's what he taught us.
Your journey from a 17-year-old recruit to retiring as a lieutenant colonel is simply remarkable. How did this experience shape the insights you offer in Out of the Uniform, Back into Civilian Life, and your strategies for overcoming adversity in Leading Through the Crossfire?
Well, going from age 17, really, I joined. I joined between my 11th and 12th grade year of high school. I was a year older than everybody else because I failed the first grade. I had academic problems, and hell, I kind of still do in a way. And so I have processing problems that I got to work on or get help from. But really, 17 was baptism under fire. I didn't have a high school diploma. I was in between those 11th and 12th. Yeah, I was in the National Guard. Okay, the National Guard. Sometimes they call it the nasty girls or the no goes. We were a less than best type of outfit. Trust me, just believe that or not, believe it or not, but that's what it was. And so I joined that reserve force, National Girls, National Guard, which hey, that's where I started. And I went to basic training and it was all hell. It was like that movie Full Metal Jacket On it really was the screaming, the cussing at a level of hell that I've never seen before. And I was sent to the criminal correctional facility because I couldn't adapt. I could not adapt to the army. I was doing my best. Like my dad, we talked about my dad saying, don't quit on anything. So I was doing my damn best. But I just couldn't, the damn water was it was flowing so fast through that fire hose, I just couldn't get it all. Do this, do that, go here, go there. I was like, I'm scratching my head like Forrest Gump. Basically, I was like a Forrest Gump, like, what the hell am I supposed to be doing? And he said, well, it was a motivational technique. They said, we're just going to send your ass over to CCF to get your ass beat up. And it was criminal correctional facility, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, 1983, early July. I went there. Now it's a range control, but they don't have that anymore. But I went over there and I made big rocks into small rocks. I went around on obstacle courses. At the end of that experiment, which was kind of like a scared straight thing, I was all bloodied and broken up. More importantly than that, what they were trying to do is show us to the platoon the worst, sorriest privates, and I was PP, Private Pike. Let's show the PP, let's show these Private Pikes what the hell you might get into if you don't do what you're supposed to be doing. I come back from that facility, and they said, "Here's Private Pike, PP. Go check him out. He's all bloody and broken up." And he just looked. I looked horrified. I was horrified. I was in trauma. But that was the technique at the time to try to not only improve you or get rid of you, but also to improve the entire platoon. I came away, like when you see Jesus or something, or you go to a low point, I came away eventually to where I was able to talk about it and also transform through it. And that sort of got me wired pretty tight and it allowed me to really go and do other things that, I never expected that I would do.
Out of the uniform back into civilian life guides veterans through VA benefits and programs. Can you describe a challenge you faced during your transition to civilian life that inspired this book and how it relates to the leadership issues addressed in Leading Through the Crossfire?
Out of the uniform back into civilian life is a veteran's self-help guide. That's what it is. And so it's best to get that on Kindle so you can link into the links that I've got there. It's a short, really short book, and it's about how to transition out of the military and maximize your veterans benefits. But so when I was in Germany, I retired. Well, so I was in Landstuhl, Germany, and the thing about it was nobody would help me with my veteran. I think some people in the veterans organization got fired or removed or whatever. And I was on my own to figure this shit out, and which I did. I did not. I'm lazy, Hey, I'm a lieutenant colonel. I get other people to do shit for me. That's how But there's nobody there, and I said, "Oh my God, this is a big." I know there's big benefits with your veteran stuff, but I don't know. I don't want to do this. I don't want to look through my medical file and figure out all this bullshit. And well, I had to do that. I had to do it, and I did it on my own. That's why I wrote the book, because I learned a whole lot doing it, which I do not recommend you doing what I did, which was trying to figure out your benefits and do all the paperwork. I don't recommend. I was just in a situation where no one would help me, and by doing that, having to go through the process, I learned a lot. That's why I wrote the book about it. I'm no expert on it. I definitely do know a lot about it, which is why I wrote the book. But I just wanted to get people out there to understand that it's not just for combat veterans, which I am, and it's not just for people who were in the Air Force or the Chair Force or whatever you want to call it. It's for everybody that served. If you served, you deserve something, and put it in there. Put it in there. Even if it's a 0%, maybe 10, it doesn't matter, because your hip bones connected to your knee bone and to the leg bone, and things may change over time. It's kind of like an investment in the future. Just go ahead and get a without even reading the book, you don't even have to read the book. Just go to the veteran service officer, get a good one. I could not get one. I could not get a veteran service officer. I had to do it myself. That's why I wrote the book. But those are my thoughts on that book on VA transitioning and out of the uniform back into civilian life.
Your books empower veterans and address toxic leadership. Can you share an example of an overlooked VA benefit that could significantly improve veterans' lives and explain how this ties into creating healthier leadership environments as discussed in your book, Leading Through the Crossfire?
One of the easiest benefits to get if you served in the military is tinnitus. Tinnitus is going to be a 10%. Anybody who shot a weapon, you got ringing in the ear, tinnitus is going to be a 10%. Really, it really doesn't have anything to do with leading through the crossfire. It has to do with that book, Out of the Uniform, Back into Civilian Life. It's really about that book, about what benefits can you capture that are sort of easy, cheesy benefits. Tinnitus would be one, any back injury. Yeah. So your medical records, even those medical records that you don't think are worth a crap. And go ahead and just do it. What I'm saying is put the paperwork in there, and if it comes back as 0%, you got a V. You've started on a program, and you're in a healthcare organization. The damn thing ain't perfect. Veterans Administration is not perfect. They've got a lot of problems. It's a huge bureaucratic organization. But you know what? If you ain't got nothing else, hell, that would be a place to go and try to put your paperwork in there for your family members, for your, even if you're a member of someone. There are the Veterans Administration and their benefits are so huge and enormous. It is kind of like it's wickedly big, and it's bureaucratic, and it's slow. I know it's a pain in the ass, but go ahead and work with it and do what you can to get your benefits. And it's not even only for you; it's also for your family members out there. It's because you could have things where it would help out if you're a survivor. It could be your spouse or someone that after you pass away, they may have some sort of benefit. So that's what you need to be thinking about. It's bigger than what you think, and it's more than what you think. What you don't know, you don't know.
How do the strategies for overcoming toxic leadership that you present in Leading Through the Crossfire differ between military and corporate environments? How can readers apply these strategies in their own lives?
Leading through the crossfire is about toxic leadership. It's the same damn thing. Okay, so military, civilian, you're going to have your narcissists. You've got to identify, and you should be able to identify people who think of themselves as a grandiosity. In other words, they are better than you, but it may come out in just different behaviors. Maybe you work your ass off and they take all the credit and they don't recognize you. Maybe there's certain quality. So I go through and identify, you know, who is really toxic. This is a person that has a grandiosity, a narcissism that is wickedly out there. Okay. And so you and I first of all identify it. That's identifying the problem. But then more importantly than that, I think without even reading the book, you need to get the hell out of there, in my opinion. Go find another job, transfer, do something else. Because these people, toxic leaders, you got to understand which one is a toxic leader is a narcissist. It's all about themselves. And you know what? There's good qualities to them. They do get the job done, but they get the job done at all costs. And the cost could be you, your health, your personal life. So, but they do. They mean, and so it's they like to kiss up, but they like to kick down. And so I go through that, and I have a lot of examples of other veterans, but it's kind of military oriented, but really it exists anywhere that there's a hierarchy, like a stepping stone of life in the organization, corporate, police, military. So that's how I go through that. And I think it's pretty cool I mean, some strategies of working, when you're in toxic leadership, these are some strategies. Some people want to fight that process. They want to fight it. And I would say be very careful fighting it. I would say take 2 to 3 months of documentation of yourself, of what that person's doing. It could be sexual harassment. It could be, just a, adminate. It could be like a bully. A bully is just bullying you and causing you hell on a day-to-day life. Whatever that toxic leadership that you, first you've got to identify that toxic leadership, that it is really toxic leadership and they are a bully or a sexual harasser or just somebody just, mentally crazy as hell. And they're a leader though. You got to understand they got to that point doing things right, even though you might not want that you might not want to think that, but that's what happened. So if you want to fight them, which I sort of want to like tell you not to, but if you want to fight them, you better have some documentation, you better do some work, and you better have, I would advise you to have another person or two, or one or two other people that will verify all the details of this toxic leader. And then you got what you will need to do is give it to proper people that will possibly punish them or do something to them or to get rid of them. That's going to be difficult. In my experience in writing this book, I think that's going to be difficult. But if you're a fighter, that's what I would do. And you better have your ducks in order over a period of time and details. Uh, the simple answer to what to do is get the hell out of there. Just get the hell out of Dodge. Yeah, you could transfer. Maybe you say, well, I've got 10 years in this organization. Maybe there's another department you can go to. Maybe there's another place you can go to. Um, I don't know if I mean so uh, because your health and your welfare of your own place, I really couldn't do that. I did get transferred in the military, and but it went to but it's really hard to get. I mean, so I was trained up not to complain and to suck it up, and I can take anything, and I was the strongest. I really was powerful, strong, not only physically but mentally because of all the hell that I've been through. But this did a number to me, okay? I don't Everybody's got a breaking point. Everybody's got a snapping point. And war didn't do it, and all these other combat places and things jumped out of airplanes and all this other airborne and all this other stuff that didn't really do it. It was really toxic leadership. But everybody's got a breaking point, so that's why I wrote a book about it. And I will, I'm the narrator, I'm the author of that, Leading Through the Crossfire, which is a toxic leadership book. So you'll see other people going through their situations and how they think through the process of that. So that's kind of my advice in a nutshell on what to do in that toxic leadership situation.
Based on your experiences and research for all three books, what do you believe are the most effective ways for individuals to navigate toxic leadership and for organizations to prevent it from taking root?
Preventing toxic leaders is a challenge because toxic leaders are really, really good at getting the job done and also sucking up to the boss. So preventing it is real difficult for an organization to do that. You've got to identify. The only way you would prevent it is if that person above the toxic leader would go down into the lower ranking people and just have a good personal relationship with them and then get some feedback. Or maybe that person above the toxic leader has other resources out to determine who's like bad and good. Maybe it could be a chaplain, a quality control person, maybe a human resource person, to have a second avenue for that person that's above that toxic. So that's a question I get. Well, how do you prevent it? It's hard because they do. I mean, toxic leaders they sort of get the job done because they're so damn ambitious at a level where they will destroy the everything to go up the ladder.
Reflecting on your entire journey from overcoming early challenges to your military career and now as an author, how do you deal with self-doubt, and what advice would you give to others facing similar obstacles in their lives or careers?
Oh gosh, I felt a lot of self-doubt throughout my life. I went from enlisted to officer, and I always felt that I'm no good. I mean, I'm a person from a very low quality background. I really am. And that haunted me a lot. And I thought that there's no way that, but I said, well, you know what? I went through basic training. That's the basic initial stage. And I said, hell, I'll just give it a try, see what happens. And then success begot success. Now, I'm not saying I was perfect. There was other, there, I had a lot of setbacks, but when you're climbing a ladder in life, what you're doing is you're thinking about your climbing a ladder. Okay, I went up that next step. I went up that next step. It could be a college degree. It could be just graduating from high school. It could be just doing something. So what you do is you say, well, I'm better off now than I was before. And then you focus on that small step. You're higher. You're a little higher. But I always, I always felt blessed. I mean, I always felt like I would never felt that I was better than anybody because I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be going. In many ways, I was thinking I shouldn't even have graduated from college. I shouldn't even have gone to lieutenant, and then I'm a captain, and then I'm a major. And I was thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I just moved up. I mean, everybody else was saying things. How the hell? How in the hell did you do this shit? And they were thinking the same way. They were thinking the same thing. And I was thinking, well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just doing it. I'm just like going forward and just, I volunteer for schools and various courses, various deployments. And I just, yeah, but you're a dumbass. I know I'm a dumbass, but I'm making it. Somehow I'm making it. And so these questions over and over and over, how did you do this shit? I mean, well, you know what? Hell, I'll try to write a book. Reading and writing are my worst subjects, but I'll try to write a book to explain this shit. Well, the first one, a soldier against all odds, and so that's what I did. And now, once I wrote the book, and I said, "Here's the book. This is how I did it." They don't want to ask me no questions anymore. Nobody asked me how I did it anymore.
During my deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, many soldiers sadly went through breakups and divorces, with their partner back home finding out such terrible news through email, handwritten letters, and by phone. Was this also a common occurrence during your deployments as well?
No, I had a wonderful wife that supported me through the whole entire process. I can't thank her enough. She supported me. She was a family member in the group to help out other soldiers. And you know what? Yeah, she supported. She gave me food packages to me and all the soldiers. She would, make sure everybody's informed about what we're doing. So I had none of that you hear about, which is weird. It's like I never had it. She was supporting me 100%, and I thank her a lot. And I would not have done what I have done without my wife.
The Army can be brutal when it comes to trying to maintain a unit's morale, especially during times of war. What would you say are your top 3 methods for quickly getting dozens of soldiers back into the right mindset to encourage positive emotions?
Be positive yourself and be like never quit and be sort of like you can do it. And I was sort of attracted to those soldiers who were less than best because that's where I came from. And so I was sort of like I identified with soldiers who were like everybody thought they were a piece of shit. I know it sounds weird, but yeah, I identified with them and I wanted to support them because I felt that I was that way when I began. And so I had an empathy. I had a wicked empathy with the soldiers that were just trying to struggle along.
Whenever someone thanks me for my service, I feel as if I was just doing my job as a soldier, doing my best in order to stay motivated and finally finish my time in the Army. What is your response whenever someone thanks you for your service?
I say, well, thank you for paying taxes because that's how I got paid. And that's cool. Thank you for your service. That's cool with me. I'm fine with that. But I'm usually thinking, hell, how did I get paid? I got paid by taxes, by the government. And if you paid taxes, then that's how hell I got paid. So that's how I respond to that.
You earned over 30 service awards and badges. Many people have no idea how precise and meticulous, and sometimes even frustrating it is, placing and removing so many decorations on your army dress uniform. Towards the end of your 31 years of service, I'm sure it must have been quite a chore to apply and remove so many ribbons and badges. Are you a strong believer that everything you did in the army, being so disciplined, directly affects how you approach and handle situations in your current life?
Oh, those damn decorations are a pain in the ass. They really are. Eventually, you got a computer that will put them all together and just match them out. And you just got to match those damn things. Or you can, if you got enough money, you can just say, okay, just put this shit together for you on the computer and then send it to me, and I'll pay whatever, $50, $100. So I don't have to do this crap. One time I had my daughter. I said, Doc, my daughter, her name's Chantel. I said, and she was only 10 years old. I says, I can't figure all these damn medals out. Can you just put them on my uniform for me? Because I hate doing this stuff. And I really do. I truly do. And some of the damn awards, I don't even know what the hell they are. And so, but that's kind of how I went by the process because I'm not a detailed person. And that's one of the problems I have is, you can change all your viewers out there can do better on a standardized test than me, and all your viewers can change a light bulb better than me. I'll end up electrocuting myself with a light bulb. But those little small crap that you have to do, that really was just digged at me big time.
Overall, did you ultimately approve of how the Army handled physical training with so much running, sit ups, push ups, and marching? If you could change anything about how the Army trained soldiers, what would it be?
Yeah, well, I went to the master fitness course, so I'm pretty good at, I mean, what running, sit-ups, push-ups, those are the basic things that we've always done. I think it's just that's, running, sit-ups, and push-ups. I think they could probably put a few other things in there, but they've tried to change it over and over and over. And I became a master fitness trainer myself, really. I was really big into physical fitness, and I still am now. But you know what? It's just hard. You got to measure it, you got to quantify it, that they've attempted to change it multiple times. I don't even think they did. I think they've tried and tried, but I mean, there is definitely a difference between a combat soldier and someone who's in the rear with the gear or with the beer. So there's differences of all these soldiers, and there's different, you want to quantify the people in the front compared to the people in the rear. And a lot of times the military wants to make it all standard to make it all, the same. But it's just kind of difficult to do to try to put everybody in the same bucket. I don't know what the standards are now. I think it's still running. It may have changed, but I think it's still running push-ups and sit-ups to now. But
In your book, A Soldier Against All Odds, how many years of enlisted service did you accomplish before becoming an officer?
so 1982 to 1986 was 4 years in the National Guard. And I was enlisted. I was a field artilleryman, and then I was contracted cadet in 1987. So I had 4 years enlisted, and that's where I contracted into ROTC at Clemson University, which was close to my hometown of Fingerville, South Carolina, and that's where I became an officer. Was out of Clemson, South Carolina.
Many people think that becoming an officer means doing less work. However, I've heard of many officers barely having enough time to spend with their family. What was it like balancing all of that hard work with your domestic life?
I enjoyed being an officer much more than enlisted because for me, being an officer allowed me to delegate tasks down. Some officers want to do every damn thing and try to do everything themselves, which is the wrong thing to do. You need to power it down. It goes through the chain of command. Once I became a lieutenant, this is it. Sergeant, you do this. Sergeant, you do that. Whatever. So you power it down. So a lot of these damn officers, what the hell their problem is they want to do everything themselves because they want to be goddamn perfect. And you ain't going to be perfect. You got to move it down. When that damn piece of shit comes down to you, you send it down to them, and that's the problem. And so I was better as an officer than an enlisted person because I knew how to treat people right and power it down in a way to find out, how to accomplish the mission. And the soldiers expect you. They expect you to power it down or to send it down. They don't expect you to do it all. If you're sitting there doing everything, that's what some of the problems with some of these damn officers is they want to do everything themselves and they're up at like midnight trying to do. That's not an officer. An officer gives it down. It's a chain of command. It goes from the top to the bottom, and that's what the how the damn just like when you eat a piece of food, it goes from your mouth and it comes out your ass. And that's how you work the system. And you don't do it all yourself. You have to let that go and have other people do those details.
In your book, Leading Through the Crossfire, you discuss toxic leadership, which I experienced plenty of times during my service in the Army. From toxic sergeants to toxic officers, do you feel that the Army is finally changing its tune to encourage leadership to minimize or eliminate harsh treatment of its soldiers?
They recognize it is a problem, um, but it's going to continue to exist. And I think the best thing for you to do in the civilian life or in the military is to identify what is toxic and how to get the hell out of there, really. So I think it's going to continue on. And every once in a while, you'll see some news clippings about, and they won't say, you'll see some news clippings about this officer was removed from this position for things, and you won't hear that. You don't know the details. You don't know the investigation, but it was probably some sort of problem that they were doing with their soldiers. It could be abuse, bullying, sexual, whatever it might be. But you will see that. They do, there is regulations on toxic leadership in the military. So military does understand that there is toxic leadership out there. It's just so damn hard to like remove from the system. So it'll continue to be there, and it's going to be there in civilian life as well. So that's just how that works.
A few years ago, I heard that the Army will no longer be hazing, or in other words, yelling at soldiers and punishing them with physical exercises, and simply stop yelling at soldiers altogether. Do you feel this is the right move as far as leadership styles are concerned?
No, not at all. My drill sergeant was the worst. What I'm saying is, I'm going to rephrase that. My drill sergeant was the most hardest drill sergeant I feel on earth. He was like that Full Metal Jacket sergeant, and he was just, I mean, just hell on wheels. And you can be hell on wheels like with those, the drills as a drill sergeant, but it doesn't mean that you're toxic. You're just doing something to try to improve and train civilians to become soldiers. So that's not really toxic. I mean, I'm still scared of my drill sergeant to this day. But that doesn't make him toxic. He was just using a technique to improve. And I still have memories of that. But that doesn't mean that he's toxic. He had a technique to move us. And so I think that the screaming and the yelling and the stress that you put somebody through is okay. I think that's fine. That's what I went through. But I don't consider my drill sergeant. I even got my drill sergeant hat. I told my drill sergeant on email I'm too scared to talk to him, but I want him to read this book because he's in the damn book. And he wrote me an email and he says, "You can call me sometime." I said, "Shit, I'm too damn scared to call you." And then he mailed me his drill sergeant hat. I've got his original hat. I'm actually looking at it right now. It's on one of my books.
In your book, A Soldier Against All Odds, you discuss how to handle situations involving personal humiliation. With so much online and offline bullying today, which not only applies to children and teenagers, but now includes adults of all ages, what would be your way of leading victims of bullying so that they don't fall into dangerous levels of depression, which could further lead to deadly consequences?
I was more in a personal bullying situation as a senior person in the military. And it really ashamed. It really got to me that the problem with me is I knew that I was strong and I knew I had a lot of confidence, but it brought me down. And with that toxic leadership stuff, and I felt bad about myself that it was affecting me that way. But you've got to remove yourself from the toxicity, and whether it be online bullying or whatever, you need to delete and take out. Somehow manage it to where you're not seeing it. You're not there with it. It could be just a person texting you all the bad things of life. And that brings you down. See, I'm a positive person. I think positively. That's the way I got out of all this shit. It's because I'm a positive thinker. And sometimes people want to bring you down to their level. And I've got friends that want to like just say all the bad things about the politics in the world of today. And that's not necessarily toxicity, but that brings you down. And somehow you need to delete and eliminate that for your own mental health. And it's hard to do because you said, well, I've been a friend with this guy for 40, 50 damn years. How in the hell can I delete him and ignore him? I mean, so you've got to say, hey, this is who I am. Maybe that's who you are, but I don't want to hear all this negative stuff. Every once in a while, yeah, we all have a problem in life. And but what I'm saying is, if somebody's continually to barrage you electronically, text or whatever, Facebook about this situation, that situation, and that's bringing you down, you need to somehow minimize or eliminate the that person's effect on you.
During your 31 adventurous years of service, and as soon as you retired from the Army, did you gradually notice people around you quickly becoming overwhelmed by a sense of apathy, where many people are simply no longer talking to each other as much as the good old days? Did you feel that outside the Army, like much has changed?
Yeah, that was a gradual thing that happened. Usually, as the technology developed, shit. I deleted a lot of my Facebook people. I didn't understand why nobody would call each other on the phone and say, "How are you?" And they're doing the text messaging and they're doing the Facebook messaging, and then they would read your, they would read it and they wouldn't answer you. I was like, what the hell is going on? It's kind of like there was a disconnect in many ways, and it really frustrated me a lot. And eventually I just said, this is the way it is. I mean, what I'm saying is like there was a disconnect that occurred, and I'm thinking, why? But in the initial stages, I mean, like you see that I just Facebooked you and I told you to call my damn ass. Why ain't you calling me or texting me? I see you reading this shit and you're not even answering the goddamn message. So it sort of pissed me off, and I deleted. And so there was a part of the time where I just said, "The hell with Facebook," and I tried to get rid of it, but I was like, really, that was really hard to get rid of it. I almost, but then I said, you know what? This has happened to everybody else too. And this is just the way it is, but that's just the way the entire system's going.
In your book, Out of the Military Back into Civilian Life, besides learning how to not curse all the time or be so aggressive, what would you say is the number one mental and emotional challenge for soldiers exiting the Army?
They really need to get through their transitional part. I know it's going to be frustrating for you to go through the transitional process. Transition is a big deal. You've done the military thing. Now you're getting out. Things are not things are not going to go according to how you have been trained and developed. And you've got to think in a different mindset. It's going to be difficult. It's difficult for me sometimes now, but you've got to somehow transition your language, your writing, your resumes to where it will match with civilian, life. I mean, a good transitional officer told me, he says, get rid of all your goddamn bullshit army stuff and start acting like a civilian. And that's really what you need to be doing. They will know that you're military from your resume, but you cannot be like acting the way like maybe I am, but or way other veterans are. If you want to get a good job and have good skills and transition over properly, you need to sort of when in Rome, do as the Romans. Like if I was over in Korea, hell yeah, I eat kimchi. And but once you're back in the States, you can go to goddamn McDonald's and shit. But you've got to do what the transition. You got to do what is matching to the program. If you're not in the program, hell, you may not get a job.
I spent over 800 total hours writing my only book that I'll ever write, all about love and relationships. Many people are too intimidated to write their own book nowadays. How do you feel after successfully publishing 3 books? Was becoming an author intimidating at first, or did it all come naturally for you?
It nearly killed me. Really did. It nearly killed me. I've got that in my testimony on the first book, A Soldier Against All Odds, because I was brought up rock solid hard. And to be vulnerable like I am now and like I do with my book, it was so damn hard. It was so hard, especially hard to see it. How I had to open up your heart. I was rock, man. I was rock. You can't break me, man. And then once you go through the process of a book, if you're being honest with yourself and you show your vulnerability, it really hurt me. I mean, it physically hurt me because I was going against everything that I had been trained to do, which was be solid. And I was sitting down and I was stressing. And I was drinking Jack Daniels and I was trying to break through the vulnerability part. And that took a toll on me. And I went to the hospital in February 2001, Stone Oak Methodist Hospital. I was diagnosed to die at that month. I don't know the exact day of the month, but it was in February 2021. Stone Oak Methodist Hospital, San Antonio, Texas. I was in the ICU. I was going to die. And they were asking me, "Are you a smoker?" I said, "No, never smoked." "Are you a smoker?" They asked me that question. I said, "No." I had blood clots in my lungs and my legs. I had pneumonia. And really, it was about the stress of the book. And it was about opening up. It was about opening up. And I couldn't do it. And it was hard. It was hard. And I was going through that breaking process. Even though I was only, I don't know, I was in my 50s, probably mid 50s at the time. And I was going through another challenge, which was writing a goddamn book about my life. And that hurt. It hurt me. It really hurt me. And then I broke through it. And then I started to podcast and write other books. But I had to go through this gate. Once I broke through the gate, I felt that I was free. I felt the freedom there.
Sadly, too many people these days see the motivational phrase never give up as just another cliche, and thus never take such powerful words to heart. I, for example, completely believe that one should never give up if it's something or someone they truly care about. What would be your advice in today's often harsh reality where so many people are giving up? For example, so many men and women these days are giving up on finding their potential future soulmate or giving up in developing and maintaining their marriage or current relationship. What would you tell someone who no longer believes in love and as a result lives an absolutely lonely life?
For men out there, of course I'm a man. I'm attracted to women. I'm not. So I guess maybe I'm not normal, but I know I'm a man attracted to women. So this is my thoughts. You know what? When I was a young man, I would go around to these restaurants, and when I see a pretty girl somewhere, I say, "Hey, man, hey, you look pretty good." And here's my number. Can you give me a call? And I would do that a number of. This is before the internet. This was before all that stuff. And I would say, "Hey, would you give? Hey, give me a call. Give me a call. Give me a call. Maybe we could." It wasn't considered a hookup at that time. It was just considered, if you like me, call me. And I would say, and I would write it down. Uh, Sometimes I'd give them a card out. "Hey, you look really nice, but this is my business here. Hey, can you give me a call sometime?" And so you just do that. And maybe I would succeed at, I would fail probably 95% of the time. But when I succeeded, it's like when that ladder, like, "Hey, man, somebody called me. Somebody called me. They're interested in me." But most of the time, you might fail at doing that. I expect that I'm going to fail. I thought that I was going to fail, but I said, "Well, I'll give it a try. Just go ahead." It was hard, that was hard to do. But and a lot of times I'd go around these McDonald's and Burger Kings and look at the girl in the window, and I'll say, I just want some water because it's free. And but you look pretty good. Can you give me some free water?" And I'd give him my number. I know that's cheap. It's really cheap. But and I would do that and over, and then I just I considered that just a part of life. In other words, women are going to close their legs, and to most people they're good people, they're going to close their legs to people and they don't like, and they open the legs to people they like. But I'm a normal man. Hell, that's what I want too. But so I would go through those, and I would just assume that most of the time I'm going to fail. But if you do it over and over again, and you might find the right woman. But if you find the right woman, the thing about it is you got to also check things out, like your soulmates or what do you want. So like you've got to experiment on what you like. In other words, these are women that you might just want to have sex with, and these are other women that you might want to bring to your family, and then there's women that you might want to date and meaning be serious with, I guess. So you got to figure that out in your own zone. I don't know your zone. I know my zone, but you got to figure that out in your own zone. And that takes time, just like you're, swinging a baseball bat. How do I hit this bat, or how do I approach things? But if you just look at one woman and that's all you want, and then you get hurt, no, it takes a little time to develop your swing of the baseball bat and how you might want to approach things.
I'm a believer in the saying, never make a bad situation worse. However, many people are impatient, suffer from severe cases of anxiety or attention deficit issues. In the Army, a soldier, whether an officer or not, can always make a bad situation worse by making poor decisions that could cost them their rank or pay. How would you guide a person with a severe case of having a self defeatist mindset who no longer cares about treating others with respect and honor? For example, the Army values encourage loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. For people who never served in the military, how would you guide them to become a better person, to develop a sense of purpose in life?
You can go to the a spiritual, some sort of spiritual person that might want to talk to you, somebody who's a trusted person, a mentor. Maybe it could be a mental health person. It could be a spiritual person, or even just a family or a friend member that you can get some guidance on to figure out what your purpose might be. A question you can also ask yourself, what have you done in the past that was good? What is your capabilities? What is your competencies that you can bring to the organization? You could go online and take a test on your competencies and purposes and things of that nature, and they will guide you to a certain level of like question. You go through all these questions. Am I a man? Am I a girl? Whatever, what do I like to do? And then they will guide you into possible jobs that you might have a good scheme in, a good purpose in. So there's a number of ways you can do that. You can ask your family, your friends, your girlfriends, whatever, what you think I'm pretty good at. And it's not just one person. Just like you don't go to that McDonald's for that girl. You ask a series of things to people or online or a test, and you find that there's maybe a place that you can serve and have a purpose in.
With a service record of 31 years in the Army, were there any moments when you thought about exiting the Army before completing 10, 20, or even 30 years? Not necessarily the thought of giving up, but were there any moments where you thought about switching to another career?
Yes, that was definitely in my lieutenant colonel years. I was already a senior person. That's when I went through the toxic leadership. And I thought that I needed to exit into a different branch or a different part of the service. That's when I was going through hell. And that's where I thought but I decided to stay in and fight the toxic leadership in a different way. I did as a captain. There's another thing in the chapter of the soldier against all odds where and this was my fault. This was my fault. I was out drinking and driving, and I was pulled over as a captain, and I was charged with DUI, and that is a bad. I mean, I know in the civilian life it's bad, but in the military it's very, very bad. I got a GOMAR, which is a general officer memorandum of reprimand. A general officer wrote a letter telling me I'm a piece of shit, and they put it in my file, which I believe was correct to do. And I was basically I was done. At that point, I was done. When you got a general officer saying that you're a piece of shit and it goes into your official record as an officer, you're pretty much done. But I fought that. I peeled it. And I thought about getting out, but I decided to stay in and fight it. And it took 2.5 years of about 2 inches of paperwork. I did win and I did get appealed and I got it processed out. But I know that a lot of people think that that's sort of a minor thing, but it was truly a major thing. It was a major thing. And a lot of people, my peers that are captains, majors, they could not believe it. Now, you look at Delta Force or SEALs and all these people that go through all this stuff, and you think, oh man, they're cool, man, they're cool. That you really don't understand what the hell I went through to get that off my record and then go from a captain to a major and all that. But that was one thing there where I thought that I was being thrown out, but I decided to stay in and never quit.
What has been the most difficult challenge throughout your Army career, which includes any life challenges during times that you weren't wearing your uniform?
I went to a criminal correctional facility at the age of 17, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, 1983. And that was my most difficult place. That's what sort of built me and changed me. And it sort of gave me more of a never quit attitude. It was at the bottom. So being at the bottom and being drugged at the bottom in many ways, that sort of like, damn, if I can do this shit, I can do other shit.
There were so many helicopter crashes during the War on Terror. Every time I rode in a helicopter during my service in the Army, it was inevitable for many to fear being attacked or crashing due to mechanical issues, as so many helicopters unfortunately have. Also, there was inevitable fear as I drove on so many dirt roads in heavily up-armored Humvees. My commanding officer, for example, told me to drive over the potholes on my side to increase the chances of him surviving. How did you deal with the fear factor? How did you minimize the fear of the soldiers you led?
So at the time in Afghanistan, when I was going through the war, I had the bombs and the bullets coming after me. I was in a different part of life than most people. My father had just died, and I had gone to war. My father had just died, and I'm going to war to lead troops in battle, Afghanistan, and get shot at. So my mental capacity in Afghanistan was a little different. In other words, I really personally wanted to die. I really did. And I wanted to do it the best I could. And I wanted to take out as many people I could. I had a personal endeavor. I had a personal, like a suicide mission to go and die in combat. Not because I want medals, not because I want to be in the newspaper. It was because I wanted to go see my father. My father had just died. I'm grieving him. Now I'm in Afghanistan. So my personal, and I really was the last one to walk out of the tent when the bombs came in because I want to get killed. I was praying to die in war because of the situation that I was in. My dad had just died, and I was grieving him in a combat zone, which was sort of mostly unusual for most people. I think probably it was just the circumstances of the events that occurred in my life. So to me, I was not scared, which is wrong. You need to be scared, but I wasn't scared. I was even praying. Come on, kill me, man. I'm ready to go. I'll go see my father. And that's my mindset in Afghanistan.
PTSD, as I'm sure you know, not only applies to many soldiers, but also to victims of abuse or other traumatic and tragic life situations. How would you encourage someone suffering from PTSD, whether it's military or non-military related, to not only find the courage to seek professional help, but also to train themselves to better handle such an intense mental and emotional condition?
So when you go to a restaurant, you have a menu. You have a menu of all these things that you can do to eat your food, right? So you need to look at PTSD as a menu. What's good for you ain't good for me. What's good for you ain't mine. So you need to look at a menu of things to choose from and maybe experiment with. Hell, if you're at a foreign country and you see a menu, God damn, I don't know what this tastes like. I don't know what that tastes like. So you're in a foreign country, you're looking at a menu of situations. Look at it not as something that's bad. Look at it as a menu of things that you could try. Of course, the doctor is going to give you some advice. I understand that. Look at it also to what you might want to do as far as taste this, taste that, taste this. You might want to go to a camp on PTSD that gives you a taste of each type of procedure. It could be yoga, it could be physical fitness, it could be, I don't know, underwater basket weaving. Hell, I don't know. There's going to be a whole lot of things you could choose to take just to taste it and to see what might help you. And if you don't like it, spit it out, go to the next thing. But a lot of people think, well, they told me to go here to taste this, to have this procedure done, and it didn't work. And then they give up, and they give up. And it's like, no, there's other things you can try. Personally, I don't like the medicines. I really don't like them. I like natural stuff. But that's just me. Maybe medicines help you. I don't know. But maybe underwater basket weaving helps you. But to me, walking my dogs helps me. So it really, you have to look at it as a menu of options.
Deploying for 9 total years in 5 different countries must have been extremely tense for you, to say the least. How did you maintain a strong mindset and control your emotions during such intense situations and extremely hazardous conditions?
Personally, I really enjoyed being overseas for the most part. I really did. I would say out of those 9 years, I think that most of them were very, very good. Afghanistan was a challenging just because of the situation with my father when my father died. I was going through some hell, and so that made Afghanistan challenging, not because of the bullets and the bombs, but just because I was grieving my father. Um, really, El Salvador. We had a lot of events in El Salvador, but I enjoyed, for the most part, I really enjoyed most of my time overseas. I really did. And if I had to do it over again, hindsight's 2020, I would have probably specialized in being some sort of foreign area officer overseas. I really enjoyed most of my experiences that were overseas. They were not as bad. They were not. I really adapted pretty well for the most of those 9 years.
You have a great sense of discernment when it comes to deciding who to trust. It takes time to develop the ability to carefully trust others, whether it's regarding soldiers or civilians. For example, in the Army, there are many times where a soldier is forced to trust their leaders, literally placing their life in their hands. What would be your advice for someone who says, trust no one? Because while it may sound reasonable, so many people end up missing great opportunities for not trusting others.
That's a very difficult question for me because DTA, don't trust anyone, was sort of one of those things that I had in mind. I grew up, I mean, I don't know. DTA, don't trust anyone, and I didn't trust a lot of people. I really don't, and even I just grew up that way, not trusting a lot of people. It's hard, really hard not to trust. I mean, it's like you can keep your shit to yourself and be strong, but you have to trust somebody. And that's hard to break through that. It really is. You may want to give a little bit of, trust to people and see what they do. And maybe just do it gradually. But with your leaders in the military or even in your corporation life, you're going to have to give a little bit. And if you give some and they don't, you're going to get, your heart's going to get broken at some point. I mean, there's no doubt that the heart is going to be broken somehow, but you've got to allow the procedure to go, even though the heart is really hard. It's really a difficult break, but you've got to somehow push through that and know that there is a possibility that your heart might break and you might get so disappointed. And it's really difficult. And I was probably the best person at DTA, don't trust anyone. And but with my relationships with the soulmates and things, I usually discerned, I usually kind of filtered things out with the relationships. I would sort of like check thing. I would go through a lot of like procedure. Well, this was before the internet. I would just kind of like look and see how they act and things of that nature and stuff like that, and go through a lot of procedures on that. But really, it's a hard thing to do, and not to be locked in or to pigeonholed into DTA. Don't trust anyone. And I would say that you need to come out of that box to see if you can, maybe give it a try somehow.
Having survived so many deployments in so many different countries, in so many different dangerous situations, it had to be more than just luck that kept you alive. Were there any moments where you doubted your feelings, where you felt you were possibly making the wrong decision, but ended up making such decisions anyway?
I trusted my soldiers very, very much, and I treated them very, very good, and I felt comfortable with the soldiers around me. In other words, I gave them the equipment, the knowledge, and the training, and that they would trust me to do the right thing. So I got along really well in those leadership positions with my soldiers. So I felt very comfortable. Really, I felt very comfortable in those situations that were sort of sketchy, because I just gave trust. I gave them all the opportunity to succeed themselves and to trust me so not in relation. We were not we were not, I mean, soldiers are not relation. We were just soldier to leader, but not the personal soulmate stuff. But no, they did really well for me. And I trusted that situation always.
For me, one of the worst Army experiences was being chosen for 24-hour staff duty or 12-hour charge of quarters, where soldiers are assigned to serve as emergency contacts overseeing the living quarters or barracks of soldiers living on post. Did you feel the same way about pulling such exhausting duties like this? Or do you feel it's something important that cannot be done in a better, more efficient way?
I thought that was a bunch of bullshit to me. Doing the charger quarters, doing the 24-hour. I was a staff officer for Aberdeen Proving Ground, and I had to be manned and awake for 24 hours a day as the man officer of the post in case something happened. I didn't. It was a duty for officers, but they have duty for in NCOs, non-commissioned officers. I hated that shit. I really did. I just thought it was a bunch of bullshit. I really did. But you had to do it because you came up on these assignments, you came up on these rosters to go and do it, like every month or every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, and you had to stay awake. I was like, God damn! It's like, well, nothing's ever happening. Nothing happens. We're on a military post, ain't nothing happening. And so, but you just had to be there to in case something happened. But that's part of the bullshit of the military. You have to deal with the bullshit to go through the glory, and that's just what I accepted to do, and I did it. But there was no really big things that happened during that time.
If you had to recommend something major for the Army to change, what would it be? For example, if you had the opportunity to speak to the Joint Chiefs of Staff or the President of the United States, what would you propose the changes should be, if any?
Get your pussy self out of the office and start being a soldier. You're a bunch of goddamn pussies out there, and they're not training soldiers the way they need to train soldiers. There's a whole lot of woke bullshit going on out there, and you need to be training to go to combat, not going through transgendered bullshit. You need to be training soldiers to go to combat. You don't need all this other bullshit. You need to be training soldiers to be soldiers. That's it. I mean, that's it. That's all it is.
Getting back to your 3 successful books, what motivated you to write 3 books? For example, writing one book was enough for me because I poured my heart and soul into my book, and I love creating audio and visual content instead in the form of video courses and educational material. Will you be writing another book in the near future? What are your future plans as far as different ways of teaching others?
So my first book, A Soldier Against All Odds, that's where I broke out of the shell. I kind of broke out of my shell, meaning I went into the zone. I'm going to talk about, I went into my creativity. So that's what led me to the other two books. And so the transitioning book and then the book for Leading Through the Crossfire. So that's what broke me out. So once you go creative and you break out of that, locked up, I'm working on another book. It's a fourth book. I am working on a fourth book. And it's going to have to do with poverty of the South and white trash. White trash is a subject that a lot of people, what I'm saying is like, I'm going to go into my roots a little bit. We're going to talk to other people's roots on what white poverty is. And a lot, that's not a popular thing to talk about. It really isn't because everybody thinks about it as other colors. But we're going to talk about white trash and things that will be a little out there a little bit. So I'm working on that fourth book, but see my creativity on those other books started with the first book, A Soldier Against All Odds. Once I broke through that gate, I opened out into a different zone, which was, not the traditional lock-in military type of thing, thinking and stuff like that.
Which rank in the Army do you remember most? Was it an enlisted rank, officer rank? Which rank do you feel you enjoyed the most and have lots of respect for?
Wow, that's a really good question. That's a good. You got me on that one, but let me think about it. I think, shoosh. I think getting out of the lieutenant ranks and going into captain was a really good thing to do because you got lieutenant jokes and all that stuff, and then once you got out of lieutenant and became a captain, that sort of sets you up a little differently. You're not a lieutenant anymore, and there's no more lieutenant jokes, and you're sort of like, okay, this dude's like going on path, and definitely once you hit major. Maybe I could rephrase this, but once you hit major, you're a field grade rank. Maybe you're a field grade rank. They know you're not getting out. Civilians, military know you're going to stay. You've gotten like from so the junior officers are from like lieutenant, first lieutenant, first, second lieutenant, and then captain. Well, captain's kind of a mid level manager. Once you go to major, that means you're field grade. You're above the mid level major. You're above a mid level. You're above a mid level manager. They know at that point you're in. You're in. And that's probably the more important rank to get as a major. You know you're going to hit your 20 years at that point. They know that there's no way. So I think, well, let me rephrase that. I think major would be the most important rank for just your retirement and for respect because you've gone above the mid-level manager. Major is the most important rank, and then after that, you get much more respect than a captain or a lieutenant.
Today, there's an epidemic of what people call cancel culture. It's where lots of people join the hate bandwagon and make it their mission to tear successful people down, similar to the crabs in a bucket example, where instead of working together to escape the bucket, every crab ends up bringing the escaping crabs back down. Do you feel this type of cancel culture these days is a major problem? For instance, in the Army, when a bunch of soldiers don't respect their leaders, they sort of gang up on them with jokes and bad attitudes. Is such a mentality justified due to poor leadership?
So yes, so there is a cancel culture that exists, and with the internet and the promotion of ideas of things of that nature they can read about, you can bring officers and military people down just by groups, kind of like a gang behavior that exists. And cancel culture is like canceling everything. Like what the? You can cancel any damn thing you want now. I mean, just gang up on something you don't like, just cancel the shit out of it. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's a strange phenomenon of a group behavior that occurs. And but when I go to that, I never spoke about this on toxic leadership. That's a good point. I really appreciate that point because, with toxic leadership, that was sort of a gang cult in many ways. It's like a bully I don't want him out. I want to take these people out. I want to take this person out. And you could do that in different ways. In other words, if you're a subordinate and you don't like the leader, you can cancel their ass out. Like you can just throw shit through the hotline. You can throw shit anywhere and sort of bring them down, either be social media or through official channels like the hotlines, where they got all these procedures of hotlines and things of that nature. So you can bring them down that way and get the attention by a group mentality, even if it's false. In other words, let's do this. We don't like this person. Let's take them out. Let's take them out, whether it's real or not. And so those things can occur. And cancel culture. You got me on that. You got me on that. Good question. That's a good question. There. I mean, can't. It could be just like the takeout, the takedown. Just take them out. Let's do what we got to do to take this person out. And those things do exist. I talked about toxic leadership in my situation, but that could be a little small part of a camp. Let's just take this. How do we take him out? Take the takedown, the ghostlighting. Um, yeah, those things do exist. They're hideous. They're wicked. I've experienced that.
You must have an enormous amount of patience to have served 31 years in the U.S. Army. With so many people today almost void of any level of patience, how would you teach and motivate them to develop the level of patience you have? Or do you feel it's simply an impossibility these days due to so many people blatantly refusing to give anyone trying to motivate or teach them a chance?
Well, I think a lot of the raising of the child really occurs and never quit a team. My father says you never quit anything in life, even if you think you're white trash, a piece of shit, you just never quit things because that's going to give you a skill. That's going to give you something in life. So you hit rock bottom. Hey man, get up and learn from that. And then so what I did hit rock bottom. I hit rock bottom multiple times, but my early childhood raising, which you've already talked about it, was the osteomyelitis and the learning disability. And I felt in my mind that I was not going to be anything in life, which I accepted that, and I thought that that was going to happen. But then I went to basic training, and then I got through that, so it's these stepping stones of life, but really it's just a procedure of a mentality, especially if you're growing up. Now, don't be spoiled brat. Don't give them everything. Don't give that kid everything. Allow them to work for things. My dad, he said sink or swim. He said sink or swim. At age 18 you're let go. No more shelter, no more food, nothing. You can't even call me. You can't even call me on the phone, collect. And so that was known at an early age that that was going to happen. And he had, he rose up from white trash. He had actually gone into the corporate world and he had money, but he allowed us to go through the shit and not take care of us because he felt that was a lesson of life. And so by going through the shit, could he easily wrote a check for me? Of course he could. Could he easily just said, "Hey man, here's some money"? Yes. But that's the easy thing. The hard thing is to see your kids or who you're training go through hard shit and then learn from the hard shit. That's the hard thing to do. Sometimes the hard thing is the difficult thing. You know what I mean? Well, I'm saying if you're looking at a decision in life, the hard decision, it's usually the right decision. I know that. I mean, it's easy if I got money. Okay, I got some money, but if I just give money to my daughter, that's the easy thing to do. The harder thing to do is to allow her to feel the pain and to go through the life and to suffer the consequences and rise above it. That's the hard thing to do. The easy thing to do is just bail them out, bail them out. That's the easy thing to do. The hard thing to do is to watch them go through the process of, the pain. And then eventually, hopefully, they will learn. from that.
What do you feel humanity has lost over so many years? Not just during your service in the military, but overall since the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, all the way up until now.
Give me a damn call. Give me a phone call. I'll talk to you on the phone. That's the thing. Is like, give me a call. Just I want to talk to you. Here's my phone number. That's the hardest thing I go through. Is just like, hey man, I just want to talk to you for a minute. That's the hardest thing I can do. And a lot of people like, who the hell are you? Because there's so much shit out there. I think the technology is really making us more separated than together.
What would you like to say to our audience out there who are listening this far along? If you had to say a few things before concluding our interview, what would you like to tell our audience?
Oh, even if you're a dumbass, or even if you think you don't know anything, even if you like think you just, show up at the right place at the right time with the right attitude, and you'll be doing more than 50% better than most. It's just a few things. It's not much, really. Right time, right place, at right attitude, you'll be above the average. That's what I'm thinking.
Thank you so much, Colonel, for being our honored guest here on Coach Ben's Authors and Coaches United. To our awesome listeners out there, please check out retired Lieutenant Colonel Jason Pike's 3 best-selling books. All the links to his books and website are in the video description, as well as in the comment section down below. Happy Veterans Day week, and much love to all.